Thanks, Teach. You'll have to forgive the smokiness of my voice. I decided to drink and then throw up afterwards. So just pretend it's real sexy. This may come as a surprise to most, but I am not as tough as I seem. I know that's hard to believe, what with my 5'9" height advantage and precisely sculpted glamour muscles. But it's the truth. I've only been in one fight in my entire life, and I choose to believe that's due largely in part to my good nature and open-minded approach in the relationships that I form with people. Either that or I've managed to hide my wimpiness in plain sight by playing the part of the tough guy. You just go ahead and answer that. When I was in the 5th grade, I played Army with my friend Ross quite often. Now, understand, this was back during a time when children could run about the neighborhood with plastic M16s and lifelike toy rifles without fear of being gunned down by law enforcement. What a time to be alive. Gosh. Ross and I played Army frequently, but although when I think back on it, I'm not entirely sure why. I had no interest in the armed forces, nor did I understand the horrifying mechanics of war. So I guess I can just chalk it up to being a dumb, bored kid. Sometimes Ross and I would recruit other neighborhood kids to play and form teams to fight one another. We would hide out, trying to spy on our opponents in order to get the drop on them so we could fake kill them. We lobbed pine cone grenades over fences into the headquarters of enemy factions, loudly proclaiming that we had blown them up, and they were all dead now. They would be in turn respond by yelling back that they had a shield up, the fucking, and that our grenades had been wasted on them. This kind of thing would go on for hours until we got tired or until the setting sun and humming street lights beckoned us home. When our companions weren't available, Ross and I would play by ourselves, either teaming up to fight imaginary enemies or just playing good old-fashioned one-on-one deathmatch against each other. Eventually, the advent of first-person shooter video games would phase this kind of thing out, but it was a simpler time. On this particular day, Ross and I were playing cooperatively and coming up with missions that we would need to carry out before supper time. We'd been playing for a little while, and everything was going just fine between us and our imaginary platoon when Ross said he wanted to get another one of his guns from his room. So we retreated to gather additional items. One of the ways Ross was different from me came in the form of how his bedroom was kept. My mother was very particular when it came to cleanliness and drilled it into me from birth. There was a place for everything, and everything had better be in that goddamn place, or so help me, there would be hell to pay. This was not the case at Ross's house, and his bedroom was a constant state of filthy disarray. Every inch of his floor was covered with dirty clothes, toys, magazines, and straight-up trash. His bed was never made. His clothes were never folded and put into drawers, and the layer of dust that lined every flat surface was record-settingly thick. We entered his room together, and he stepped across the junk-covered floor toward his bed, where I assumed he was getting the gun we came for, although I couldn't see anything amidst this chaos. I stayed back close to the door for a moment before deciding to wade across the ocean of trash to join him in his search. Then happened. I was walking carefully across the junk-carpeted floor with my head down, trying to be mindful of where I was stepping, when suddenly Ross bounded at me from the bed, shoved me back against his closet door, said something incoherent, then slapped me hard across the face. Ow. I was completely stunned and had not only had no idea what was happening, I had no idea why it was happening either. He was clutching the collar of my shirt with the hand that he didn't slap me with, and I pulled it away, stretching my shirt out in the process. I roared back, and shoved Ross in the chest with the entirety of my 5th grade 80-pound underdeveloped puss might. He stumbled back a few feet and tripped over a pile of Legos covered in baseball cards and mismatched socks before his balance and falling backwards on his bed. He lost his balance and fell backwards onto his bed. That's what that says. Next, I did the only thing I knew how to do at that age. I ran away. I didn't wait for him to get up to see what his next move was or even to ask what triggered his action. I just ran from the room, out the front door, and across the lawn to my house, absently clutching my plastic assault rifle with the makeshift kite string strap. I bounded through my front door, throwing open the door with enough force for it to bounce off the wall of the staircase and bounce back to almost strike me in the face for the second time in less than 2 minutes. I stood in the entryway, panting, while trying to process what happened as I fought to catch my breath. My mommy came around the corner from the kitchen, drying her hands in a dish towel with her eyebrows knitted in anger as she was about to no doubt scold me for banging the door against the wall. Her expression changed from anger to concern when she saw the distress that had hijacked my usual happy-go-lucky facial features. "John Wayne, what's wrong, sweetie?" she said, kneeling down to be on my level. Hey. Was all I could muster before I began bawling uncontrollably. What else was I supposed to do, though? I wasn't a fighter, and by no means was I a tough guy. I had read all of the Ramona Quimby books by Judy Blume several times over, for Christ's sake, and I'm pretty sure those were geared towards helping young girls through their early developmental phases. My young and fragile psyche was not prepared for something like this. My mom hugged me close and I cried on her shoulder for several minutes while she attempted to calm me down enough so I could tell her what happened. When I finally did, she, of course, made a phone call to Ross's mother, who was just as shocked and said she would talk to Ross. When my mom spoke to her again later that day, she said the reason Ross attacked me was because I had stepped on his Guns N' Roses poster. I remembered what poster he was talking about because it had been on the wall in his room a few days ago. It was the cover from Appetite for Destruction, but it was one of those felt posters that glowed in the backlight. If I did step on his poster, I most certainly wasn't aware that I had, and furthermore, don't think I should be held responsible for stepping on something covered in trash that should be hanging on a wall. Needless to say, our mothers negotiated the requisite post-fight handshake and apology, but all was not well between us for quite some time after that. I cut him out of my life, refusing to call, go over, or invite him to play army with me. I even went so far as to go on several solo missions, convincing myself that I was having more fun that way. Eventually, the anger faded, along with my grudge, and the two of us went back to being friends without missing a beat, like nothing ever happened. The only lasting effect the entire experience had on me was that I have yet to get over my raging hatred for Guns N' Roses. Damn you, Axl Rose. God damn you to hell!